Who were the Aztecs really? The story they didn't tell you. Did you know of a civilization that could build a city bigger than Paris on a lake? A society of schools for all? Herbal doctors and architects who mastered water better than many modern cities. We call them the Aztecs, a civilization that created an empire in less than 2 centuries. Although history says that they disappeared after the conquest, the truth is that they are still alive in the language, food, and culture of millions. Today we discover who the Aztecs are and why their legacy is more powerful than you think. The Aztecs, although they technically called themselves Mexica, the term Aztec comes from Aztlan, the mythical land they claim to have come from centuries earlier. The Aztecs were a Mesoamerican civilization that flourished between the 14th and 16th centuries. They established their capital, Tenochtitlan, in 1325 AD on an island in Lake Texcoco, in what is now the heart of Mexico City. By 1519, just before the arrival of the Spaniards, the Aztec Empire already controlled vast territories that span from present-day Veracruz to Guerrero, and from Puebla to parts of Oaxaca and Michoacán. At its peak, the Aztec Empire was estimated to have numbered more than 5 million people, making it one of the most populous civilizations in the pre-Columbian world. Its capital, Tenochtitlan alone, had between 200,000 and 300,000 inhabitants, a figure comparable to European cities such as Paris or Constantinople at the same time. And speaking of Europe, while the Aztecs built temples on the lake, the Renaissance flourished in Italy with artists such as Leonardo da Vinci. In Spain, the Catholic monarchs financed Christopher Columbus, and in the Far East, the Ming dynasty was reigning in China. The Aztecs were contemporaries of some of the most influential cultures in global history, yet they developed their model of civilization with architecture, religion, astronomy, art, and amazing political organization. They were not the first or the only ones in Mesoamerica, but they were among the most ambitious. In less than 200 years, they went from marginalized nomads to rulers of an empire that still leaves us speechless today. The pyramids and cities, Tenochtitlan and the temples of the sun. When Hernan Cortes and his men arrived in Tenochtitlan in 1519, they could not believe their eyes. One of them, Bernal Diaz del Castillo, described the city as surpassing anything known in Europe. It seemed like a dream vision, he wrote. And it was no wonder. Built on a set of islands in Lake Texcoco, linked by causeways, canals and bridges, Tenochtitlan was a floating city with white temples shining in the sun, crowded markets, floating gardens, and monumental pyramids. The city's heart was the Templo Mayor, a gigantic pyramid more than 45 meters or 147 feet high, dedicated to 2 important gods, Huitzilopochtli, the god of war and the sun, and Tlaloc, god of rain and agriculture. Its 2 parallel staircases represent this double dedication, which led to 2 twin temples at the top. It was the epicenter of the empire's spiritual, political, and military life. From there, sacrifices were made, astronomical rituals were performed, and decisions were made that affected millions. Although the Templo Mayor was destroyed after the conquest, its remains can be visited today in the historic center of Mexico City, right next to the cathedral. The Templo Mayor Museum houses impressive finds, including sculptures, offerings, ritual tools, and deep insights into how the Aztecs understood the universe. In addition to Tenochtitlan, the empire had other important cities, such as Texcoco, Tlacopan, and Tlatelolco, where the largest market in the region was located, and Teotihuacan, which, although not built by the Aztecs, was revered as a sacred city. In fact, the Aztecs believed it was built by the gods and called it the City of the Gods. The Aztec pyramids were not tombs like the Egyptian ones, but stepped temples aligned with astronomical events. They were used for fertility rituals, sacrifices, and solar observations. They were made of volcanic stone covered with stucco and painted in bright colors. For the Aztecs, the city was not just a place to live. It was a replica of the cosmos, and each pyramid was a sacred mountain where the sky touched the earth. Imagine that at dawn, with copal smoke, ritual drumming, and the sun lining up right behind the temple. Few civilizations have made architecture that feels so alive, even after 5 centuries. Their culture and lifestyle. Daily life in the Aztec Empire was a vibrant blend of discipline, spirituality, intense commerce, and a deep respect for the cosmic order. Contrary to what is often thought, not everything revolved around war or sacrifices. The Aztecs knew how to live and live with structure, flavor, and love. The basis of their diet was corn, prepared in tortillas, tamales, atole, and other dishes. They combined it with beans, squash, chilies, tomatoes, avocado, and for the upper classes, more luxurious products such as cacao, turkey, dried fish, insects, and maguey honey. Nobles could even enjoy elaborate dishes that included complex sauces and fermented drinks. And yes, the Aztecs bathed daily, both for hygiene and ritual. They used steam baths or temazcales, in which the steam of water on hot stones purified body and soul. They also used aromatic herbs and volcanic ash as exfoliants. While bathing once a year was sufficient in Europe, the Aztecs bathed every day and even several times a day if the weather or work demanded it. The houses were simple but functional, an adobe or stone structure with palm roofs, a hearth, a duffel bed, and a small domestic altar. In urban areas, many houses had gardens and bathrooms connected to rudimentary drainage systems. As for love, yes, there was a formal marriage. The families agreed upon the unions, which could last several days. Gifts were exchanged, ceremonies were held before the fire, and once united, the couple was part of a community structure. Although there is no exact number, families used to have an average of 3 to 6 children, depending on social status. Art was omnipresent, from textiles with religious symbols to stone sculptures, painted pottery, and music with flutes and drums. They also played tlachtli, the Mesoamerican ball game, for ritual and recreational purposes. In markets like Tlatelolco, everything from spices and obsidian to enslaved people, Quetzal feathers and jade were traded. Cocoa and blankets were used as currency, and barter was common. The Aztecs didn't just build a powerful empire, they built a way of life where everything, the body, food, love, and art, had a place within the universal order. Living among them was not easy, but it was undoubtedly fascinating. A very advanced empire for the time. Despite what is often believed, the Aztecs were not simply warriors with feathers and obsidian knives. They were engineers, astronomers, doctors, architects, farmers, and educators. Not only was this empire extensive, it was also finely organized and technologically advanced. In many respects, even more so than Europe at the same time. Let's start with education. In the Aztec Empire, all children were sent to school, regardless of social class. There were 2 types, the telporcali, for the children of peasants and soldiers, where they learned trades, history, and military discipline, and the calmesac, reserved for the sons of nobles, where they studied astronomy, mathematics, literature, law, religion, and leadership. There were also schools for women focused on the home, textile art, and religious traditions. Like the Mayans, the Aztecs used a vigesimal system or base 20 for mathematics, with symbols representing units, multiples of 20 and hundreds. Although they did not have a symbol for zero as developed as the Maya, they could make complex calculations, fundamental to trade, tribute, and calendars. Astronomy was an essential part of their worldview. They knew how to predict eclipses and followed the movement of Venus. Their ritual calendar, the Tonalpuali, had 260 days, while their solar calendar, the Xiapuali, had 365 days. Combined, they created cycles of 52 years. This knowledge allowed them to organize plantings, festivities, and wars precisely. And in medicine, the Aztecs used more than 1,000 plants with healing properties, some of which are still recognized by modern medicine. They had surgeons, midwives, bone makers, and herbalists. They used suturing techniques with human hair, poultices with chili or maguey, and steam baths for muscle ailments. The Codex Budiano, a herbium written in Nahuatl and Latin in the 16th century, documents many of these treatments. The Aztecs were absolute masters of architecture and hydraulic engineering. They designed a city on the water, Tenochtitlan, with dikes, aqueducts, navigable canals, and chinampas, the famous floating agricultural islands that allowed them to farm even on the lake. At a time when many European cities were flooded by rain, the Aztecs knew how to control the water in their favor. They also built an extensive network of elevated causeways, many crossing the lake, linking Tenochtitlan to the mainland. These roads had removable bridges to control access, and swift messengers, the penani, traveled the empire on foot as a kind of human postal system. They had no wheels for transport and no pack animals, but their roads were efficient, their buildings solid, and their knowledge amazing. And yes, they even had drainage systems, public latrines, and forms of organic recycling. In short, the Aztecs were not only skilled with the spear, they were also skilled with pencils, medicine, calendars, and mathematics. They were a technologically advanced empire that understood the environment and knew how to transform it without destroying it. They disappeared without a trace, or are they still here? When talking about the fall of the Aztecs, many imagine a total collapse, an empire that disappears overnight as if it had never existed. But the real story is more complex, painful, and hopeful. The Aztec Empire fell in 1521 with the capture of Tenochtitlan by the troops of the Hernan Cortes, allied with thousands of indigenous enemies of the Mexica, such as the Tlaxcalans. The struggle was neither quick nor easy. It lasted almost 3 years and was marked by treacherous alliances, diseases brought by the Europeans, and a fierce resistance led by Cuauhtémoc, the last Tlatoani, who fought until the last day with honor and dignity. One of the key factors was the arrival of smallpox, a disease unknown to the Mesoamerican people. It is estimated that in just a few years, up to 80% of the native population died from epidemics long before they saw a Spanish soldier. It was a silent apocalypse. The Aztec armies were defeated not only by swords, but also by invisible viruses. Tenochtitlan was razed after the city's fall, its temples were destroyed, and a new capital was built on its ruins, Mexico City. Temples gave way to churches, codices were burned, and Mexican nobles became vassals, workers, or enslaved people. And they disappeared? No, the Aztecs did not become extinct. They adapted, resisted, and survived within a new colonial order. Many customs, words, and knowledge were kept secret or mixed with Christianity. Today, millions descend from the Mexica, speak Nahuatl, celebrate festivals that mix pre-Hispanic roots with Catholic tradition, and preserve ancestral names, foods, dances, and knowledge. Many words we use today originate in the Aztec culture, such as chocolate, tomate, aguacate, chili, cacahuate, coyote, tamal. The list is endless. It permeates later cultures. Modern Mexico would not exist without them. From the solar calendar to the chili en nogada, from the names of places like Iztapalapa or Chapultepec, to the very idea of the Mexican nation, the Aztec legacy lives on. So no, they didn't disappear without a trace. They left streets, names, seeds, blood, and history. And today, more than 500 years later, their gods, words, and descendants still walk among us. The Aztecs were not a myth or a simple page in history books. They were a complex, powerful, refined civilization and profoundly human. Their legacy did not end in 1521. It lives in the language, surnames, Sunday tamales, and every corner of Mexico. If you walk through Mexico City today, you are walking over its ancient empire. Every time you hear a word in Nahuatl, taste chocolate, or see a pyramid, you are hearing the echo of the Mexica.